We're just jumping in here to the game between iMonster and the Educator. They're a few turns in, so I'll have to do some catching up. We got a base set kingdom here, and what we got here is we got plenty of trashing. Sentry can trash cards, Moneylender can trash the coppers, but not the estates. We've got action with village and throne room. We've got plus buy with market, and additional gains with bureaucrat if you wanted to gain silvers. But there's no draw here. There's absolutely no card here that increases your hand size. So if you got a 5-card hand, that's the biggest it's going to get over the course of the whole turn. And we got a nasty discard attack in the form of militia. So a lot of turns you'll be playing with a 3-card hand, and with no draw cards, there's absolutely no way to increase. What does this say? Yep, that's good. Keeping spectator chat off is definitely good. That means they can't see chat if spectators say anything. Anyways, as I was saying, got a strong discard attack in the form of militia. So a lot of times you'll be playing with a 3-card hand and no way to get 4 more cards in hand because there's no draw here. So what's that suggest about the kingdom to me? As if it weren't always true, but it's doubly true here that you want to get real thin. You want to get those coppers and estates out of the way because I don't know how to tell them yes because they can't see my chat, but the answer is yes, I can see your chat and you can't see mine. I guess you'll figure that out later when you see the video. The answer is always. I don't think there's a way to prevent the spectators from seeing the player's chat. Anyways, trashing is super important. Coppers and estates are even more in the way when you have maximum 5 cards in hand, right? Any copper and estate in your hand is just inevitably preventing you from drawing other cards. Yeah, this is correct, what they're saying here. And then, secondly, I really like Market as a payload here, and Vassal. Potentially Throne Room can be useful to play Market or Vassal additional times. The benefit of these 2 cards is they don't take up space in your deck for draw purposes. Market has +1 card. That doesn't mean it's net drawing you a card, right? You have to spend to draw a drawing Market. Market draws you a new card, you're just breaking even. But it's at the very least draw neutral. So if I'm capped at, a 5-card or a 3-card in a lot of context hand, I'd much rather have some markets and some vassals rather than golds and silvers, because if I have 2 golds in my deck, that's all the cards I can draw for that turn, right? The gold take up a spot in my hand. The market, I can play it and then draw a new card, get it out of the way. Now vassal doesn't always draw. Vassal is +2 coins, and then it discards the top card of your deck, and if that's an action card, it plays it. So if you can line that up, for example, using Sentry to check the top card of your deck and make sure Vassal always hits an action. But if it's hitting an action, then it's functionally a draw card, because you're getting to play a card straight from the top of your deck without having to draw it into your hand first. So you're saving a draw that way. So I think the ideal deck composition here is you want to get to Sentry ASAP. That's the key trasher here. It's true in a lot of games with Sentry. So I'm looking to open with things that can help me hit 5. And then very soon I'm looking to trash all the coppers and estates down into a deck that's mostly Sentry, Market, Throne Room, Vassal, and add in a militia in there so you can attack your opponent. We said the militia attack's going to be real hard. So to that end, I think the plausible openings here are on your $4 buy. So if you have 5 too, really easy. You just open Sentry, the end. Problem solved. But that only happens, I think, 1/6 of the time. If you have 4-3 or 3-4 for your turn 1 and turn 2 hands, I would think on the $4 buy, Militia and Moneylender are the key opens there. I think I lean towards Militia because I'm going to plan to trash with Sentry anyway. Moneylender could get you jumpstart a little bit trashing because it can trash a copper. Militia at the very least gets in an attack, and I value that a lot because that can prevent your opponent from hitting 5. Then on the $3 hand, you add a silver or a vassal. Silver's a little bit safer because if you see silver in the same hand as Militia or Moneylender, you can still use both of them. Whereas if you have Vassal and Militia in the same hand, or Vassal and Moneylender in the same hand, you can't play them both because they're both terminal action cards. So Vassal is the riskier one. Now the benefit of Vassal is that it's the thing I want long term. I don't want silvers in my deck long term because they're getting in the way of my Vassals, right? My Vassals need to find action cards on the top of the deck. And silver is both not an action card and it's a stop card, right? It's not drawing me anything, so it's taking up very, very valuable real estate in my deck. With no plus draw, I want as few stop cards as I can have. I think I would take the silver though, just for the safety's sake, and maybe trash it later once you get your coppers and estates out of the way. But that's how I'd play this deck: is probably Militia silver into Sentry as soon as I possibly can, trash all my cards, and start adding throne rooms, markets, vassals. You could probably build up to double province here pretty easily with that strategy. Let's see what they did. We are coming at this a little bit behind, so I'm not sure we'll even catch up. For game number 1, iMonster opens with Moneylender and Village. I like the Moneylender half of it. We discussed, I think it's slightly worse than Militia, but it's still quite a plausible candidate for a $4 buy. Village I don't like. I don't like opening Village in almost any context. Village is a perfectly fine card, but it's doing nothing for you in the first reshuffle, right? Village, people, maybe you're tempted to think, oh, it's like a draw card or something because it says +1 card on it. That just means it's breaking even on draw, right? You have to spin to draw, drawing into your hand. You get a draw when you play it. It's draw neutral. The real benefit of Village is just giving you extra action to play more action cards. But there's no conceivable way that going into turn 3 when you first reshuffle your deck that you could ever have more than 2 other action cards in your deck that you would need to play, right? You've bought a Village and you bought 1 other action card. So the Village cannot conceivably be helping you in that first reshuffle. You're adding a card that in the short term is of no value to your deck. Much better to get stuff that helps you immediately. For example, a silver that can hit higher price points, or a card that can trash, something like that. And then get the Village later on when you need it, when you do have multiple action cards that you'll need Villages to play. So disagree with the Village opening for sure. Same thing, we see the Educator has a Village here. Same point. Now they open with Bureaucrat. I like this a lot less. Bureaucrats in general are a very weak card. I think arguably the weakest of the base set. Gaining silvers is just like pretty mediocre effect on the face of it. This is not a kingdom where I even particularly want silvers. And I take a silver in the very opening to get me to 5, and I'm probably going to get rid of it later if anything. But also, Bureaucrat's sort of actively impeding your ability to hit that key $5 price point in the short term, right? Because the turn you draw it, Bureaucrat does nothing for you, right? It's a card that gives you 0 coins immediately. And then for like your next shuffle, you'll have an extra silver. And so, a few turns down the line, Bureaucrat's starting to pay off. But the thing I want from the silver is not its long-term value on my deck. I want the silver immediately in the short term to hit 5. Bureaucrat's making sure I can't hit 5 in the short term because it's taking up space and not giving me money. And it's giving me a silver for later when I no longer want the silver. So I would not even take a free Bureaucrat, I don't think, if someone offered it to me. Not in a kingdom like this anyway. Maybe there's some kingdoms where it might not be bad, but yeah, I wouldn't like the Bureaucrat. So let's see how this progresses. They buy more Villages. Again, they both have 1 terminal action card in their deck. They don't need the Villages. What cards are you playing with that? You already have 1 action by default every turn to play your Moneylender or your Bureaucrat with. You definitely don't need the Villages yet. Who's getting this Bureaucrat? Is that the same person as the first one? No. Okay, so iMonster is also going into Bureaucrat. I dislike that. I definitely dislike that. Yeah, on 4 here, maybe a Militia, maybe another silver. I'm trying to get 5 as soon as I can. All right, so the Educator hits 5. Kind of ironic because they're the one who opened with the hand that was least likely to hit 5. They got a little bit luckier, then they bought a Market. Strongly dislike that. Market's definitely a good card in this kingdom. It's one that you'll want, but it just pales in comparison to Sentry. Sentry's a really, really strong card, but Sentry's a strong card in the opening, right? The reason I was saying it's important to get to 5 ASAP is partly because Sentry's a strong card and you want to get there as soon as possible, but it's also partly because Sentry's a much stronger card at the very beginning than any other time. Sentry's valuable because it can trash your junk cards. But the way it trashes that is you check the top 2 cards of your deck, and then if you see like an estate or a copper, you can trash those. Now if you get that early, like let's say you get lucky and you had a 5-2 and you open with Sentry. When you play your Sentry turn 3, you are 100% guaranteed to see 2 junk cards, and you'll be able to trash 2 cards very soon. But now let's say you drag your feet, you get some markers first, and then mid-game you add the Sentry. What are the chances that Sentry sees 2 junk cards once you trash 2 cards? Pretty low. You'll probably be seeing 1 or no junk cards, and the Sentry will be revealing your markets, your villages, etc. And it's going to be really hard to find those coppers and estates. So it's really important to get that Sentry into your deck as soon as you can. I'd often pick up 2 even, in rare cases maybe even 3, before getting to other stuff, because Sentry's easy. It's really good at trashing junk cards early. It gets much harder late in the game, and so you're going to struggle towards the end there if you don't get it in your deck ASAP. They're really going hard for these villages. Again, I don't like that. I'm iMonster has, I think, a total of 2 terminal actions at this point. They have a bureaucrat and a moneylender, and they've got 3 villages in their deck. With 3 villages, they can play 4 terminal actions. They've only got 2 terminal action cards. They're kind of going overboard on villages. And, that's not bad in the abstract. A village in your deck isn't getting in the way of anything. Worst case scenario, you can just play it and draw a new card. The harm to buying the villages is not that the village draws your deck down. It's you're passing up on the ability to improve your deck. You're buying a card that's doing nothing for you when you could be buying a card that's doing something for you. And so it's the opportunity cost of buying a card that helps you better in the short term. Like, I think probably a Vassal at that point would be good. Well, now you want Vassal once you've got the Sentry. Yeah, I think the answer is probably to sort of like retcon your strategy from the get-go to get Sentry sooner. I like the Militia buy. Okay, they're both getting Militia. Again, Militia is, I think, a real strong attack here because there's no way to draw. So if you discard their hand down to 3 cards, it's never getting higher than 3 cards again. Not in this kingdom, at least. There's no laboratories, there's no smithies, there's no council rooms, no library. Harbinger, Harbinger's good in... stepping back a second. Harbinger's generally pretty weak. It's best in kingdoms where there's a lot of cards, a lot of junk in your deck. And so maybe you got 30 cards in your deck. You draw like 5 of them the first hand, 5 of them the second hand. Then turn 3 of that shuffle rolls around. You can play the Harbinger, maybe top deck the best 1 or 2 star cards of your first 2 hands for turn 3 again. So you buy 1 gold, you can see it 2 or 3 times the shuffle by playing it and then top decking it again with Harbinger. That's, I think, where Harbinger shines. And a kingdom with good trashing like this one, Sentry's a phenomenal trasher. Harbinger in a good deck is not going to be doing a whole lot. Because if you get thin, get your deck trashed, you'll probably be drawing through most or all of your deck every turn. And then you're going to start each turn with a brand new deck and no discard pile. So Harbinger will not have a discard pile to look through. There won't be anything to top deck. Again, it can't proactively hurt you or anything, right? +1 card, +1 action means it's pretty much always going to break neutral for you. But it's passing up on the ability to add, higher priority cards to your deck. So Harbinger is not a card I would be very likely to get many of here. Again, more villages. I think they're kind of going overboard on the villages. The province seems way too early. I wouldn't province here before I got deck control. It looks like they're eventually getting around to getting a Sentry. All right, so the Educator gets a Sentry. Better late than never. But again, early is much, much better than late when it comes to Sentry. I really just like the second Bureaucrat. You don't need a lot of silvers here. And 2 Bureaucrats is kind of pushing it. Again, with the iMonster really likes villages. Again, I'm gonna strongly caution against going overboard with the villages. You need some villages if you have multiple terminal action cards. That's not wrong. Village is a good card used appropriately. But if you spend all your buys on villages and none of your buys on terminal action cards, the villages are just not doing a whole lot for you. More Harbingers. All right, iMonster gets around to getting their own Sentry. Turn 14 is pretty dang late for that. This Sentry's going to struggle to trash stuff. Buying gold. This is not a kingdom where I particularly want gold. My deal deck doesn't have any treasures in it. I trash the silver that I buy eventually. I think that's much stronger. It looks like they're aiming for a simpler, just sort of big money strategy where they play a lot of silvers and golds. And that's okay. Big money is never too terrible. But it's really, really hit hard by that militia attack, right? If you have 1 militia in your deck and you're playing big money where you flood your deck with golds and silvers, you're playing militia once every 5 or 6 turns? They've got 1 militia in a deck of 30 cards. They're not getting that attack in very often. And if you add in a bunch of militias, well, now you have this problem of either the militias clog each other up, you see a bunch all in one hand and you can't play them all, or you have to add a bunch of extra villages just to resolve those militia plays. And that's kind of an awkward deck to build. You build a thin deck, like the type I was describing that has, Sentry, Market, Vassal, all cards that draw you more cards. Not like net draw you cards, but they don't take up a spot in your hand. They replace themselves and draw on. You'll be finding your militia almost every turn because you'll draw through your whole deck every turn. And then with 1 militia, you can be consistently attacking them every single turn, and that's gonna be a lot more impressive. And think about how hard it is to hit 8 with a 3-card hand in a big money deck. You got to have 2 golds and a silver or a militia in your hand. Lining all that up precisely is kind of hard. So I don't like playing big money here very much because I think a good engine deck that gets a militia attack in every turn is going to be oppressing that deck to the point of not being able to hit 8 very often. Getting Gardens. This really ought not be a good kingdom for Gardens. You should be getting trashed, so you shouldn't have too many cards in your deck. I would expect Gardens to not get bought here given ideal play. That being said, neither of them's really trashed their cards, so I guess Gardens does end up being pretty good here for them. If you have 30 or more cards in your deck, Gardens is basically the equivalent to Duchy, but cheaper, because it's worth 1 point per 10 cards. 30 or more, all of a sudden it's worth more equal to a Duchy. You hit 40, it's now worth more than a Duchy. Buying Province, Gardens. All right, so they're already well into the greening phase. Turn 20 Sentry kind of confuses me. Turn 20 is not the turn I want my Sentry. At this point in the game, I'm starting to consider actually buying Duchies and stuff like that, or Gardens, because now we're well into the point scoring process. So the Educator seems to be in the lead. Is that the person who won the first two? Oh, good. This is a comeback, actually. So iMonster was the person who won the first 2 games before we joined. And so it looks like Educator is about to start a comeback. So where'd they get the lead from here? I'm gonna guess at a glance. I was just going over the log real fast, but I think iMonster going way too heavy on the villages kind of prevented their deck from kickstarting. The other thing I'll say is, the villages are really good cards in an engine deck where you're playing lots of action cards every turn. And there is an engine to be built here that could maybe involve some villages, but neither of them is building that. They're building a more money-ish style deck where you're playing lots of golds and silvers. That deck doesn't really need a whole lot of villages. You're probably on average seeing 1 action card every turn, and so the villages are sort of buys that for money would have been much better just being silvers or something. You buy some silvers so you don't have to worry about playing too many action cards. You just play lots of money and win. And so I think that's probably where iMonster has gone awry. Is the ideal deck here plays a lot of actions, but in a very different order than iMonster is playing them. They're not buying the actions that make an action-heavy deck work. Villages thrive in that deck, but that's not the deck they're playing. They're playing an otherwise money-focused strategy with lots of silvers. They got a bureaucrat to add bunches of silvers, and in that deck you don't need a whole lot of villages. And so I think the mass amount of village buys has probably slowed them down, because those are buys that, for a money deck, are kind of wasted. You buy the silvers earlier, you're hitting your 6 earlier, buying more golds, and that's kind of what big money wants to do. Again, I think I don't think we're going to see it too much in H Division, but definitely the ideal deck here, Sentry, Market, Throne Room, Vassal with a Militia at the end, is a deck that would just be real nice, real clean, would be the one thing that can kind of get around the Militia attack and get it in for the opponent. I think that deck should not involve Bureaucrat, should not involve any silvers beyond the opening. That's, I think, what perfect play in this kingdom would look like. But yeah, 50 points to 23. I think the Educator has definitely got this one. So iMonster has to score 27 points before or more than that even. You have to score quite a lot of points before Educator can buy Duchy twice. If I'm Educator, even if I hit 8, I might consider not buying Province, because there's 5 of those left. There's 2 piles already empty, and if a third pile of any type empties, the game ends. So if I'm the Educator, I just buy Duchy twice, rather than trying to buy Province 5 times, because I know I've got this massive short-term points lead. I want to bring the game to a close before my opponent can pull something out of their butt and power up Gardens and score a million points or something. So yeah, Province buy isn't bad. I think it's all winning in the end. But if I'm the Educator, I think I just buy Duchy twice in a row. Ironically, despite the million villages, iMonster ends up with 2 terminal action cards in hand and no village. Alright, that's the game. Now 2-1 in iMonster's favor, but the Educator's making a comeback. Is I I'm getting the impression from the chat that maybe they're reporting their score after every individual game. That sounds a lot more tedious than it needs to be. You only have to report the score at the end of the match. All right, let's look at this kingdom. So, draw. There's Smithy, which net draws you 2 cards. There's Moat, which net draws you 1. Certainly in this kingdom, I'd much rather be drawing with Smithy, but Moat could work in a pinch. For villages, we just got Village. For trashing, you can trash your coppers with Moneylender, or with Mine. Mine can turn them into other treasures, but there's no way to get rid of estates here. And then plus buy, well, we've got Market for plus buy. And you can also gain cards, again with Mine, or with Bandit. And we have that Militia attack around again. So what are you doing here? You can definitely build a bit here. I think you want to have a decent number of smithies and villages. That would make a whole lot of sense. I'd really like to have a majority of the villages in this kingdom if I could get a hold of them, because the plus action is pretty limited, and there's a lot of terminal actions I want to play. The more smithies you can play, the better you can draw. And I would also not mind being able to play a militia and or a bandit at the end of my turn. Militia to get the attack in, and bandit because it's a very easy way to get some payload for the deck. So I think militia silver is a viable opening. That's one way to go. I think I would take Moneylender silver here. Because I do want to get trashed pretty fast. Those coppers are definitely going to get in your way, and so I'd like to get out in front of the trashing. I don't like trashing with Mine as much. Mine's generally a very weak card. It takes a long time to do a whole lot with it. It's not making your deck thinner. You're just replacing a copper with a silver with a gold, one treasure with another. Your deck is just as many cards as before. And it's real slow to turn those coppers into golds, right? You have to draw through your deck twice, play Mine twice, just to get one copper up to a gold. I think with any other trashing round, a much better strategy is just to trash them entirely with Moneylender, and then later you can add golds by getting a bandit. Let's look at how they opened. Okay, so the Educator went Moneylender Village. I like the Moneylender half of that, but they're still opening with Villages, and I think that's still a mistake. Village is a really nice card here, and you're definitely going to want to get it eventually. I said, I'd like to win the Village split like 6-4 or more if I could, but it's just doing nothing for you in the opening. I'd rather open a card that in the short term helps me do stuff. So I think Moneylender Silver is probably the stronger opening. iMonster goes with Militia Silver. I think that's perfectly plausible. I value the trashing a little bit higher than the Militia attack. The 5s here are not that much stronger than the 4s and 3s. That deny me the ability to hit 5 is going to be like a crucial game breaker, like it was in the Kingdom with Sentry. But Militia's not a bad opening. I think Militia Silver is fine. The Educator continues buying villages. I think this is kind of a mistake that iMonster made last game. They went too heavy on villages, and the deck never really came together. Now, this is a kingdom where I do want villages a lot more than the last kingdom. But I think you still got to build a deck that is kind of doing something first, and then you add the villages to it. I'd like to get a market or two, and then if I got some plus buy, I can be picking up multiple villages per turn. I'll probably be catching up in villages anyway, but then I'll have a deck that does something at the end of it. I like picking up a militia for the attack. I don't like picking up a second militia, though. iMonster gets a second militia turn 3. What you want, I think, is a deck that can draw well, and if you draw through your deck, all you need is one militia. You play the one militia at the end of the turn, you get the attack in every turn, and then you're in a better spot. Militia doesn't stack or anything. They can't discard down to 3 cards twice. So all you need in your deck is one militia if you're drawing your deck reliably. And so I think you want one militia and then some smithies and villages to find that militia every turn. Now, iMonster gets a gold turn 4. Dislike that. Dislike buying gold. Gold buy is usually a mistake. First off, I think it's too early to be adding payload. Their decks are not under your control. I want more smithies, more villages. I want to be more trashed before I even think about adding a bunch of payload to the deck. But if I do decide, eventually, the time rolls around, I need more payload, I want to add some golds. Well, there's Bandit here, which can just give you, A, as many golds as you want, while B, attacking your opponent at the same time. So I'd much rather spend one buy on a Bandit and get all the golds I ever need, rather than buying golds one at a time from the supply. Definitely, if you ever find yourself considering buying gold, just really seriously consider, is that really better than the $5 actions around? Because, sometimes the answer is yes, but very often the answer is no. And this is one of those kingdoms where I think buying gold is a mistake, even if the endgame is going to involve you having golds as your main payload. I think you can get those off of Bandit perfectly fine. Smithy buy I like. Mine, is this the same person who has the Moneylender? Okay, well, so the Educator did not already have a Moneylender, so I guess, mine's not bad. You're at least turning the coppers into something more productive. And like I said, I think it would be much faster to just trash them the moneylender and then regain the golds later with bandit. Mine is usually kind of ignorable card. But certainly, I guess mine is better than nothing if you're not going to get the moneylender. Again, buying gold. I think they've both now bought golds. Yeah. Neither of them touched bandit, which is just an unlimited supply of golds. I think the gold buy is a bit of a mistake. iMonster continues buying gold. Educator buys silver. I think after that initial silver buy, I think most of my buys in the early game are going towards engine pieces. I'm picking up plus buy with market, draw with smithy, villages, and then get a militia for the attack. Wait, why did I think someone had 2 militias? Did they only have 1? Maybe I misread that. I think at some point here I said that one of them had 2 militias. If I said that, I think I misread the log. Oh, I see. I thought iMonster had 2 militias. They only have 1. 1 is totally fine. That was just an error in reading on my part. But they have bought a lot of golds. I don't like that. None of them is anywhere close to drawing their deck. Priority 1 in most kingdoms, anyone where you have the possibility of getting deck control, is get your deck under control first, then start adding that payload, right? So you want to get those coppers trashed with moneylender. You want to add some villages and draw with smithy and village. And then once you start drawing your deck, you add 1 gold to that. You're seeing that gold every single turn. It's giving you 3 coins every single turn. If you jump out, buying the golds at the start before getting deck control, you have to buy 4 or 5 golds to see a gold in hand every turn. And you're getting less value out of 4 golds than you would have had with 1 if you had deck control and could find that gold every turn. So yeah, I think the play order here where they're prioritizing gold, I think is definitely wrong. If you see the possibility of building, definitely do that first and then start adding the payload. Not to mention, as I said, when you do want to add the payload, bandit's a much better way of getting gold into your deck than buying the golds. Alright, so they've both gone into province now. Turn 12. Given the style of deck they're building, that's kind of a reasonable turn to start greening. They're not really aiming to draw their decks or anything. And so if you're just buying some golds, buying some provinces, turn 12 is not a bad turn to start. But certainly here, I think I'd much rather be trying to draw my deck and starting to consider provinces after, say, the village pile is empty. I'm drawing my deck, I've got a bandit, I've got a militia, and I've got some smithies. And once I'm getting some turns where I'm reliably playing a bandit, playing a militia, drawing through my deck and playing some markets, then I start thinking about provinces. I think that's what this really ought to look like. They're playing very similar decks. I do prefer the moneylender opening. That was the Educator. So we'll see if that pays off in the end. The Educator has trashed 3 coppers to iMonster's 2. But the Educator has trashed those coppers outright. iMonster has replaced them with silvers via mine, which seems a bit worse. I don't like that smithies are still at 9. Right? You're picking up a bunch of villages. They've got 6 total villages between the 2 of them. The main card I'm wanting to play using those villages, those plus actions, is smithy to draw more of my deck. I think you want a few markets for plus buy, and then you just want a lot of smithies and villages here. And then at the end of that chain of smithies and villages, you've drawn a bunch of treasure, you've got some plus buy, and you're probably getting in at least a militia attack, maybe a bandit attack too, and then your deck's in a real good spot. It looks like their ambitions are a little too modest here. I think they're not building as much as they could. There's definitely a lot more to go around in this kingdom. Now let's look at the specific plays. So at this point, I assume iMonster is going to buy a province. Gardens. That's interesting. So their deck's almost at 30 cards. So you can assume the gardens will be worth at least 3 by the end of the game. But 2 gardens at that point is worth 1 province. And it's taking up twice as much space in your deck. 2 gardens is twice as many cards to stumble over that'll prevent you from hitting key numbers in the future. I think I'd have just taken province there. Gardens isn't terrible or anything, but it's like buying 2 duchies when you could buy a province. I'd rather just have the province, I think. Now, between gardens and duchy, it makes sense to buy gardens over duchy, even if you have 5 or more, because even if they're not quite at 30 cards yet, they know the deck's going to be at 30 cards before the game's over, and so gardens will be worth as much as duchy, and maybe more. Maybe they could get up to 40 cards and get their gardens worth 4. So Garden's better than Duchy, but still seems worse than Province to me. I assume as Educator you take that Province. Yeah. Grabbing that third to last province can also be pretty strong, especially in money-ish games where you're not building very big, because taking the second to last province is really awkward. And so I want to put my opponent in that position of having to take the second to last one. The reason that's awkward is because in games where you're only buying like a card or so per turn, which these decks, that's all they're going to do, you buy that second to last province, your opponent can buy the last province in the game on their turn, which is the place you want to be in. And so generally you want to bring the province pile down to 2, and then you get in that awkward scenario of, all right, well, I can't touch the second to last province because I'll take a temporary lead, but then they'll buy the last province and they'll win, and the game will be over. And so you have to start buying duchies and stuff like that. And so, yeah, third to last province is usually kind of important to get because touching the second to last one is often awkward. Now, with a big engine, you don't have to worry about that too much, because if you can build enough to buy 2 provinces in a turn, then you're totally fine with your opponent leaving you 2 provinces. You just buy both of them. But neither of them is trying to build an engine. Smithies are still at 9. It's probably around 9 more Smithies than ought to be left at this point in the game. I don't have a great sense of who's ahead here. They played very similar decks. Those Gardens are going to start to be worth a bit if they can get up to 40 cards in deck. So they're at 29, 34 cards. If I'm Educator, I really want to end the game soon because once iMonster hits 40 cards, all of a sudden those Gardens are going to be worth a lot more. Can they do it here? This looks like a hand that could hit 8. Oh, maybe not. Only 6. What's the garden split look like? Yeah, so iMonster has 7 of the 8 gardens. So that makes me think, ending this game soon benefits Educator a lot more than iMonster, because eventually, in fact, pretty soon, iMonster is going to power up those gardens, and all of a sudden, that's 7 more points. So iMonster has 21, 23, 24, 27 cards in deck. It's not super important with only 1 gardens to hit any key numbers, but it might be important to be cognizant of that number so you know exactly how many points you're going to have. Educators should probably count on having 1 more point from their gardens before this game ends, because they'll probably add like 3 total more cards to the deck by the end of the game. Not that number is likely to be super important, but it could be the key tiebreaker. Keeping track of the number of cards in your deck with gardens around can often be kind of important. All right, Educator hits Province. Definitely take that. So, can iMonster win? Are they at 39 cards, perhaps? I don't know exactly what their number is. I haven't been keeping track closely enough. But, ideally what you'd be doing if you're playing a Gardens-heavy deck is keep track. Because let's say iMonster knows it at 39 cards right now, or 38 even with the market around. They could buy that last province, which on its own would only bring them to 46 points, which is losing. But if that province is the 1 card in 10 that tips their gardens over the edge to be 4 points instead of 3, that's another 7 points coming in from the gardens. All of a sudden, now you're at, 53 instead of 40, and then you win. So as it happens, they did just pass that key threshold. So if they had 8, buying the province would have been a win there. Of course, they only had 7, so it wasn't an option. That's kind of why it's important with gardens around to keep track of how many cards are in your deck, because to know whether buying that province will be a win or a loss for you. Looks like iMonster takes it. Not sure what the key difference was here. Again, they played pretty similarly with their openings. I liked Educator's opening a little bit better with the Moneylender. But part of the reason I like the Moneylender opening is because getting Thin's really helpful for building an engine, and then they never really tried to do that. So I think they weren't taking advantage of the thinness of their deck. Now, thinning is less important for big money because you're just trying to add a bunch of treasures to it anyway. All right, so I believe that is now 3-1 for iMonster. They're taking the lead again. 2 more games left, though, so Educator could end this match in a tie. All right, heading into the penultimate game. What have we here? So, draw. We've got Laboratory, which is non-terminal draw. You'd also draw with Witch or Emote, which are terminal draw. Is there action? Yes, there is action in the form of Throne Room. So we've got draw and action. Trashing. We've got strong trashing in the form of Sentry. How about plus buy? There is no plus buy, but there is gains in the form of Workshop. So my thoughts here. First off, as usual, with Sentry around as the primary trasher, getting to 5 ASAP I think is super important. I'm probably opening Militia Silver here. I think that's the best opening at A, guaranteeing I hit 5. And B, hopefully preventing my opponent from hitting 5. You know, a key Militia attack early on might turn their $5 hand into a $4 hand. So I think Militia Silver is the best opening. And then the goal is your first buy or 2 should be Sentries. And then once you've got, probably 2, maybe 3, probably 2 Sentries, I think. I want 2 Sentries early on to get trashed fast. After that, I think stage 2 of this game is to pick up a Workshop or 2. The Workshop's the only way to gain more than 1 card per turn. If you don't get a Workshop, at most your deck is improving by 1 card per turn with your 1 buy. And so I think after you got that trashing started, you get a Workshop or 2. There's a lot of cards here that I would not mind adding that cost 4 or less. Throne Room seems like a super important card. It's the only village. I would happily take probably all 10 Throne Rooms if my opponent let me have them. You could get some Vassals for payload. You could get some Moats for draw. I would never buy a gold in this kingdom. I would not buy a silver after the opening because I'd much rather spend my key buys on like Laboratory or Witch, the 5 cost cards my Workshop can't gain, and then I'd pick up like 3 or 4 Vassals and then a lot of Throne Rooms and a Militia. Yeah, I think ideal deck composition is like 3 Vassals, a Militia, some Sentries, some Labs, a bunch of Throne Rooms. You only need 8 coins in deck here because without plus buy, the most your turn can ever do in the buy phase is buy a single card. The most expensive card in the kingdom is Province. So if you build a deck that can play itself efficiently and find all its cards, well, you only need 8 total coins in that entire deck to be able to afford every conceivable thing you could ever want to afford. And so I wouldn't fill my deck with lots of treasures like silvers and golds. I would add, again, a silver is good early to help you hit Sentry. I don't even think you want the silver long term. You could trash it later. This is another kingdom where I would get rid of it. But 3 Vassals and a Militia is enough to hit 8. And so I want that in my deck. You could even get away with fewer, honestly. Like you could Throne Room a Vassal, and now 1 Vassal's getting you 4 coins. That would be totally fine. But I think that's where this deck should look. That deck is also, I think, better at dealing with curses, right? Like curses will probably get given out. This is not a kingdom where I think cursing is central. Sentry is strong enough to deal with those curses. But certainly I'd be happy to give some curses out and make my opponent work to get rid of them. And definitely an engine deck that keeps its deck under control can deal with those curses better. A nice little interaction here that will make it easy to get rid of those curses is Sentry plus Cellar. So, Sentry's big drawback, as I mentioned in the first game, is it's really good early on when most of your deck is junk. Because it's revealing 2 cards kind of essentially randomly. And if 90% of your cards are junk cards, you're probably revealing 2 junk cards and trashing 2. But then towards the middle of the game, we've got a bunch of good cards in your deck and just a lot more cards in total. The chances you find the 1 or 2 junk left get lower and lower. And so Sentry can kind of fall off towards the mid-game at actually finding the 1 or 2 last few cards in your deck you're trying to trash. A nice way around that is you can use Cellar to discard those cards out of your hand. Normally the problem is like you get a copper or state in your hand, there is no way for Sentry to get to that card, right? Sentry only trashes cards from the top of your deck, not from your hand. But with Cellar, you can discard those estate or coppers back to the discard pile. Then when you draw through your deck, you play the Sentry at the end of that process, and coming up is your discard pile that's got the junk in it, and so you can guarantee you find that estate or copper to trash. That's also how you can get rid of curses here, right? You just guarantee the curses in your discard pile, and you can guarantee your Sentry finds and trashes them. So I think at some point you probably pick up a Cellar. All right, now I haven't actually looked very much at what they did. Let's look at their openings. So they both open with Workshop. I don't like that. I do think Workshop's a super important card here. There's a lot of cards I want to gain with Workshop, but priority number 1 has to be getting to Sentry. Workshop is getting in your way for that goal because A, it's not getting you money, right? It's not giving you coins like Silver or Vassal or Militia is. But B, the turn you draw it, it's getting in your way. right? A hand with 4 of their cards in Workshop, for the purpose of hitting 5, that Workshop's as good as an estate. It generates you no coins the turn you get it. Now it can get you cards that down the road can help you hit 5, like you can get militias and silvers off of it, but by that point it's too late. You gotta get that Sentry in your deck as soon as possible. And so I would not take Workshop early, because it prevents me from hitting 5 early. And this is another kingdom where I want to hit 5 as quick as I can. Yeah, Workshop Militia I think is kind of doubly awkward, because there's a good chance you draw them both in the same hand, and then you can't play them both. I think for me it's a clear Militia Silver opening. iMonster opens with Sentry. I like that. I think a lot of people would be tempted to open with Witch. Witch is a strong card, and in a lot of kingdoms in the base set, Witch can be like the central card in the kingdom. Like if there's bad trashing, basically if there's no Chapel or Sentry around, getting Witch early, playing Witch a lot can be like the central factor. But Sentry's a strong enough trasher that I would take Sentry over Witch here. You add the Witch later, probably, but a deck that's thin has sort of negated the value of curses. If they got their estates out of the way, the curses aren't really doing anything because they're already thin anyway. And B, the Sentry can get rid of those curses long term, like we said, especially with like a seller around to set up for good trashes. Educator takes the Witch first. I think that's a mistake. Witch is a strong card. It's often the key $5 opening, but I think with Sentry, the Witch should be playing second fiddle here. Educator does get a Sentry afterwards. I like that. You know, Sentry should probably be the first 5 and the second 5, but better second 5 than not. Now, turn 6, iMonster got a gold. Don't like that one bit. Buying gold is, rarely do you want to buy golds. Like I mentioned, you don't need a lot of payload in this deck. There's no plus buy. Your entire deck only needs to get you 8 coins total to afford everything you could want. So there's no point in adding gold. You can get all the payload you need from Workshop gains. Don't waste your buys on that. Spend your buys on laboratories or witches, stuff you can't get with Workshop. You can easily get silvers or vassals or militias or throne rooms with Workshop, and that will constitute your payload. And so spend that $5, $6 buy on a card that you can't get with Workshop. I mean, technically you can't get gold with Workshop, but like the other cards around here are functionally equivalent. Moat's not bad. Moat's fine here. It's a key draw card. I don't mind a second Workshop. I think, you could easily play with 2 or 3 Workshops in this deck at least. More Sentries, totally fine. I don't like how many silvers and golds they're adding. This is not a kingdom I think where you want to play big money. This is a kingdom where I think you want to draw your deck. And silvers and golds are not helping towards that end. I would nix the treasures. Throne Room and Witch are both not bad buys. Turn 10, Gardens already. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. In this kingdom, no way. Workshop Gardens is like a pretty mediocre strategy, I think. Like it's not terrible. It's a fine strategy. If I were like at the level they're playing, I'd probably learn the Workshop Garden strategy because it's easy to pull off and it's never too bad. But like you've got good trashing with Sentry, you've got tons of payload. I think you could get 8 provinces before they could empty the gardens, workshops, and estates, I think. Especially because the Workshop Gardens Rush is doing nothing to attack, right? That deck's not playing militias, that deck's not playing witches, and so they'll be hit with a discard attack every turn, which that doesn't hurt the Gardens deck too much. But they'll also probably be taking all 10 curses, which does hurt them a bit more. Gardens makes curses a little bit less bad, but they're still pretty bad. It's still net negative points, and it's making sure you find those workshops less often. So I'd be happy to give the Gardens player all 10 curses. Yeah, I mean, this Ancient Kingdom seems pretty decently strong. Sentry's a good trasher, Workshop's a fine gainer. You can pick up enough stuff to get to 8 pretty consistently, pretty fast. I imagine in a world my opponent just forgoes attacking me entirely, you could probably build an engine that starts hitting single province around like turn 9, and then consistently provinces every turn from there on out. And I don't think Gardens Workshop comes close to beating that. Now, to their strategy, they're not really going for the full Workshop Gardens rush. They're kind of buying a few gardens, and I don't like that. I mean, if you're going to build, you should probably get your deck in order before you start greening. There's definitely more trashing to be done here. Neither of the decks is quite coming together yet, and so that garden should probably be another Workshop, another Throne Room, something that gets their deck in order before you start considering greening. Now, late in the game, Workshop gaining gardens is something I'd expect to happen towards the end, because if you start provincing equally, Like you both start provincing turn 10, and you're gaining a province each. Gaining some extra gardens will be like the key tiebreaker points at the end of the game. So gardens could play a role there, but I don't think gardens is the central card here. I mean, you should be really trash with Sentry, so the gardens shouldn't be worth too many points anyway. And then for anyone who's not aware, the way the Workshop Gardens Rush tends to work is you just gain all the workshops, you gain all the gardens, and then you gain all of a third pile, usually estates. And the idea is to try to empty 3 piles real fast and take a little points lead before they can build up to do like 8 provinces or a big deck. And it's all right. Like it's an okay strategy. It's sometimes viable. In weak-based kingdoms, I've played it before. But it's not particularly amazing. It's slow. Workshop's terminal. You're gaining at most 2 cards per turn. It's going to take a while to empty 30 cards in a deck like that. There is some cards and expansions that make it stronger, like Ironworks and Groom are both variations on Workshop that make the Gardens Rush a lot more viable of a threat. Groom Gardens is quite strong. Ironworks Gardens is a bit better than Workshop Gardens. But I think standard Workshop Gardens is like a C or D tier strategy, and here we've got at least a B tier engine. Yeah, I don't like how they're going very heavy for points already. Curses haven't all been given out. There's a whole lot of throne rooms left. There's a lot more cards I want, and if there's still room to be built, I don't think I'm rushing to take duchies and gardens. Who has the witches? Let's see. So T has both witches. iMonster does have twice as many sentries though, but the deck's not that thin. 2 sentries in a thick deck is still going to have a lot of trouble getting rid of those curses efficiently. Part of the value of keeping your deck real lean is you can trash those curses the turn they come in pretty reliably. But if you've got a deck with, as they do, 30 cards, the odds that you find your curse with the sentry and the top 2 cards of your deck that's pretty low, right? You're not going to reliably get those curses out of your deck. So you want to be able to draw your deck so you can guarantee that you're able to trash those curses from the discard reliably. I don't think curses are really all that negated with gardens. So curses have 2 main costs. The first is the -1 point, right? So you take 10 curses, there's -10 points. If your opponent has 8 gardens, best case scenario, they've got all 8 gardens, they get 8 points for having 10 more curses in their deck, but they're still losing 10. So they're down -2 victory points. So it softens the points thing a bit, but definitely doesn't end it. Especially, if, as is the case here, the gardens are split and you're not getting a full 8 points from it. But generally, the bigger drawback of curse is not the victory points, or the negative victory points. It's the fact that the curses are taking up a ton of space in your deck, right? It's your deck being ridden with curses is preventing you from hitting provinces, and that's what the curses are doing. The deck being ridden with curses is preventing you from finding militia every turn and attacking your opponent. A curse that said, 0 VP, I think would be like, in most kingdoms, 80% as bad as a curse that says -1 VP, maybe higher, because that's where the curses hurt, right? You can get them trashed eventually, probably by the end of the game, and you're probably not even taking the negative victory points by the end of the game, but even if you're getting them trashed, that short-term harm of having to draw them a few times before you ultimately trash them all, that's where the curses are holding you back. And so I would not think of gardens as a counter to curses. Gardens does nothing to prevent the main harm of curses, which is reducing your deck's quality, filling it with junk, making it harder to find your good cards. It's going to be a good seller play. You get to discard 4 of those cards. And redraw mostly junk again. Sad. It is weird to me that Duchy and Gardens have both run out already, and Provinces are at 6. That doesn't seem like the right priority here. You know, why take 3-point victory cards when you can be building to get the 6-point cards? Both of them seem to like Gardens a lot. Not totally sure why. Gardens is like okay, but it's usually not the centerpiece of the kingdom. iMonster does have a big lead. Oh, that was a nice sentry play. They revealed 2 curses. That was quite lucky. That's pretty big. So why does iMonster have the lead? Let's see if we can figure this out. Where did Educator fall behind? The Educator did have the riskier opening with 2 terminal action cards, but they found one turn 3, the other turn 4, so that didn't cause them any problems. They did get Witch, which we said was a slightly worse 5 than Sentry. I'd much rather be opening with Sentry, gets you thinner faster. But they did get a Sentry turn 5, which is slower, but it's not much slower. They're both buying treasures, which I don't like. iMonster is buying golds a bunch, which I guess it's better than buying silver. So I don't love it, but they're both buying treasures. So better it be a gold than a silver. iMonster did start greening earlier. Buying Gardens turn 10 feels a bit too early to start scoring. Maybe that's a bit of it. Or did I say iMonster? I meant the Educator started buying Gardens turn 10. Then, well, iMonster's also taken Gardens by turn 12. I'm not exactly sure where this deck went wrong. Like, both their strategies, again, seem pretty similar. The Sentry early, maybe that was the difference. I'm not exactly seeing what caused it to be 24-47. That's a much bigger victory point split than I would have guessed just at a glance from the log. Yeah, the problem is, this Gardens thing is like, it's like okay. And iMonster, I think, keeps doing the big Gardens thing, and it's better than what the Educator can do. And so I think they've gotten the false impression that this Garden strategy is very dominant, and it just happens to be better than what their current decks can muster. I think the early Gardens rush in both of the kingdoms we've seen has been very much a misplay, but it's a misplay that I think that they're just kind of not at the ability level yet to punish with this strong engine. All right, what do we got here? So we got the only draw here is the library. You really don't need to report every game one by one. That's just, I feel so bad. That's a lot of effort that they're taking. It's for future games, just report them all at the end. You can enter the 6 games at once and save yourself a bit of effort. All right, anyways, back to the kingdom. They got library, which is not amazing draw. Library works well with like payload that you can get into play mid-turn, like Festival or something, but we don't see a whole lot of that here. There's no other draw. We've got plenty of action. Village and Throne Room row with actions. We've got good trashing. Chapel's an amazing trasher. Chapel's a strong enough trasher. I would ignore Moneylender entirely. We've got buys with Market. We got gains with Bandit. We got an attack with Militia. So what do we do? The draw is a little awkward because the best payload here probably is golds with Bandit, but golds and library don't draw very well together, right? You play your first library, you draw to 7 cards, you get a hand with mostly golds. That does not surprise me at all. Piling all the provinces in 16 turns, I think that's very much what I think a good engine could do. And I think a deck that does that is gonna to blow this like Gardens Duchy stuff out of the water. So one strategy is just you get golds with Bandit, and then you probably add a library too for some draw, but you just sort of give up on drawing your entire deck because the golds and the library will conflict with each other, and that's fine. I think that's one viable deck. The other option is to make your main payload like Markets, Merchants, some Throne Rooms, and a Militia, and then just keep your deck at lower than 7 stop cards so that you can effectively draw your whole deck with library. I think that's also pretty viable. I think that's probably what I lean towards. So that deck would get a silver, probably in the opening. Well, maybe not in the opening. Maybe like turn 3 or turn 4. A single silver so that your merchants work, because merchant gives you +1 coin, but only if you play a silver. And then you're playing mostly a lot of markets, a lot of merchants, a lot of throne rooms as your main payload. And then maybe like 2 libraries total to draw. You only really need, I think, 1 library ideally, but you probably want to get 2 anyway, just because you can't necessarily guarantee you find your library in the starting hand. So what do you open? Definitely Chapel. Chapel turn 1 or turn 2 is a no-brainer. Gotta get trashed ASAP, no matter what deck you're building here. What do you open with it? Moneylender, I guess, could expedite trashing a little bit. I don't think it's worth it with Chapel around. You can get rid of all the coppers anyway. You could just open with silver, because you're going to want a silver eventually. I think I lean towards Chapel Militia over Chapel Silver, because, Militia and Chapel are 2 terminal action cards. But if you find both of your buys in the same hand anyway, you're still not playing both, right? If you draw Chapel Militia and 3 junk cards, you trash 3 junk and ignore the Militia. If you draw Chapel Silver and 3 junk cards, the correct play is still trash 3 junk, ignore the silver. And so it's not really important, I think, that silver is technically non-terminal for these purposes, because you're probably not going to be making use of it anyway if it runs into your Chapel, and you just kind of got to accept that. So I would take the Militia, because if I can get that Militia attack in, especially as player 1, I think has double the reason to take Militia. If you can get that Militia attack in the turn before they play their Chapel, a 3-card hand with Chapel in it's only trashing half as many cards as a 5-card hand. And so I would really love it if I could get a Militia attack in and just totally quash their early Chapel trash. So I think Chapel Militia is my ideal opening, and then you get trashed ASAP. You want Market, I think, is your first $5 buy, because you want that plus buy. There's plenty of $3 action cards here you can pick up in the form of Merchant and Village. I'll be back in 1 second. Alrighty, I am back. I think the last thing I was saying is I'd get the Market as the first buy, because I'm happy picking up some extra merchants and villages. Plus buy, I think, Market's the only thing that gives it here. I'd love Workshop in this kingdom if it were around. There's a lot of $3 and $4 actions I want, but Market will have to do. Throne Room will also be a good buy on 4, right? If you only have 1 Market, you can get twice as many buys out of it if you throne it. Let's see what they're doing. They're well underway. So, Educator with Village Militia, and iMonster with Moneylender Village. Yee. So, it seems like they're both, maybe not aware yet of the strength of Chapel. Chapel is just, it's an amazing card. I think it's ranked 8th out of 360 cards at the moment. Definitely in that ballpark. I want to say 8th. It's really, really, really high up there. Why? Well, because trashing cards is just so good. And Chapel trashes 4 of them for $2. It's the best card in the base set. Chapel or Sentry are the only 2 that are even in contention, because they trash so well. A thin deck is just so much stronger than a thick deck. And with Chapel, you can get all 10 starting cards trashed so early on. And I just could not conceive of an opening in almost any base set kingdom where Chapel's around and I did not buy a Chapel. Just trashing is too valuable to pass up. Now, as for the things they did take, iMonster at least opened Moneylender, which is a way of trashing. You're trashing 1 card at a time and not your estates, but it's better than nothing. Militia is okay. The main reason I wanted Militia, though, was to shut down my opponent's Chapel, which they didn't buy. But on the $3 turns, they're buying Villages. I won't go into more detail again, because I've already said in the past, but Village, not a good opener. It's just doing nothing for you. Village would be a good card eventually, you just don't need it yet. You don't have multiple terminal action cards to buy. But now, turn 3, turn 4. iMonster gets the Bandit, the Educator gets the Gold. I think, my ideal deck does not involve either of those cards. I want to build with Library, Throne Room, Market, Village, Merchant, etc., and a single silver. But I think at least, Bandit, Gold, Money would be fine here. So between the 2 of those, I think Bandit's the better buy than Gold. If you're trying to get Golds into your deck anyway, which is an okay strategy, buying 1 Bandit gets you an unlimited supply of Golds. Buying 1 gold gets you 3 coins, which is only half the way to avoiding another gold. And Bandit trashes your opponent's golds. So if I'm trying to play a gold heavy strategy here, Bandit is definitely the better buy. I like that buy from iMonster more than Educator's direct gold buy. I imagine what might be going on here is, I see this tendency a lot with newer players, is the Educator hit 6, they had 4 coppers and a militia, and so players get this mindset of, well, I've got $6, I've got to spend it all. There's a $6 card called Gold. If it costs 6 and the other cards cost 5, well, it must be the better card. It's definitely not true. Gold is generally worse than a lot of the actions in the kingdom. Get the card that's best for your deck. Of all the cards you can afford, buy the best one for you. Doesn't matter if it costs less. Bandit at 5 is better than Gold at 6. It's kind of strictly better because it gets you Golds, which are $6 cards. Market, I think, is a better card than Gold here. Library even is better than Gold. So don't feel compelled because you've got $6 to spend all of it. You can have $19, and if the thing your deck needs is plus buy, you're buying the Herbalist, or you're buying the Candlestick Maker, whatever. Don't buy the most expensive thing. Don't assume the price means it's the best card. The best card in this kingdom is the cheapest kingdom card, Chapel. Chapel is far and away better than every other card here, and it only costs 2. I would buy Chapel for 8 here if it cost 8. So how does this go from there? The Educator ends up picking up a Bandit as well after Gold, which seems like a weird order, but better late than never. iMonster gets a Chapel. Turn 5 is a weird turn to get Chapel. Chapel is, again, very much like Sentry in that, and this is true for a lot of trashers, it works a lot better in the opening than any other time. You buy Chapel turn 1 or turn 2, you're finding it with, at minimum, 3 junk cards in your hand, very likely 4 junk cards in your hand, turn 3, turn 4. And you're getting a ton of trashing in. You buy Chapel turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, whenever, you're probably drawing it with like 2 or 3 good cards in your hand. That Chapel is trashing 1 or 2 cards, and it's maybe getting in the way of your ability to play the Bandit. So it's much better to open with the Chapel first, trash down to like 4 or 5 cards, then start playing your Bandit, and now every gold you have is going straight into a deck of like 5 cards. You're seeing it like almost every turn, and all of a sudden your deck is like half gold before you know it, and you're affording provinces really easily. So Chapel first, build later. They're getting some markets which I like. They're getting some gold which I don't like. Harbinger is not particularly useful here. Already buying duchies, turn 12. The double bandit I think is overkill. I think one bandit is good enough. You get a thin deck, you find that bandit most turns, you're getting more golds than a thick deck with 2 bandits. I don't like the double bandit. I also don't like such early duchies. The Educator does seem to be in a big lead here, though. How'd that happen? Let's take a look again. I don't particularly like either openings. And I don't like the gold buy, but they did eventually get a bandit turn 5, so that probably wasn't a huge difference. I'm not sure where they got ahead here. Oh wait, did iMonster get 2 chapels? Gains a chapel. Yeah, I don't like getting 2 chapels. Turn 5, turn 8. 1 chapel early is way better than 2 chapels at any other point in the game. You can trash all 10 of your cards in like 3 or 4 turns if you get that chapel into your deck immediately when it's lining up with 4 other cards at a time. 2 chapels added to your deck mid-game are trashing half as many cards each, and they themselves are junk cards, right? Like, you get a chapel, you trash your 10 cards, you're left with 1 chapel. You get 2 chapels, you trash 10 cards, you're left with 2 chapels. And then once you're trashed, the chapels aren't doing anything else for you. And so, yeah, mid-game chapels are a lot weaker than just 1 chapel early game by a long shot. Both of them have got a few clutch bandit plays that have trashed their opponent's gold. So I think it's 3-2 on gold trashes. So I don't think that's the key difference. They're both taking duchies, which, I don't know. I guess at this point in the game you can start thinking about duchies. I think the militia play over the bandit play is probably right there. You know, early in the game, bandit's probably doing more for you than a militia. You get a gold in your deck, that's paying off for the rest of the game compared to the short-term 2 coins of militia. Late in the game, it kind of makes sense to value the immediate discard attack, the immediate money, over a gold that you might draw, you know, just one more time before the game ends. And so I think around this point, it does make sense to start playing militia over bandit if those are in conflict. All right, so Educator's up by 9 points. So even if iMonster takes the province split 3-2 from here on out, they'll still lose by 3. So I think iMonster's in a real bad spot. They got to win this province split like 4-1, and well, Educator's got enough for province in hand. So there's the one. They've got no more room for error. They're about to have a real nice turn, though. I might strongly consider just playing the one market. Is this a shuffle worth triggering? Maybe. I have to think about that one. Gonna trash that copper? Yeah. The estates. Can that matter? I guess conceivably they could win by taking 3 of the provinces and 4 of the estates. There could be an argument for buying estates there. It's a nice hand from iMonster. I guess it's not that nice. You don't really want to see a hand with 4 golds in one hand and no other plus buy, because all you need is 8 money, not 12 money. And if you got 12 in that hand, that chances are means that your other hands are having, you know, less money in it than they could. As iMonster, what are they undoing? Bought a curse. I assume they meant to click estate. Come on, iMonster. Okay. As long as they ultimately grant the undo. I guess the sarcasm is fine. It'd be sad if they didn't grant that one. I think that's a pretty clear mistake. As iMonster, I think I play the militia here. Okay, good. And there's an argument for bandit, which is they've only got 1 card left in their deck, so if they play the bandit and get a gold, that's 1 more gold going directly back into the shuffle. But, you know, with this few provinces left, I think the chances of shutting down that turn from Educator, preventing them from hitting 8 once is, I think, enough to make that discard attack worth it. Educator deliberating hard on whether to play the militia or the market first, or perhaps just AFK. They made the correct choice. Definitely play market before militia. One of them gives plus action, the other one does not. Again, I would play militia here over moneylender. I mean, as it turns out, seeing iMonster's hand, we know that they just discard 2 duchies. It doesn't get in an attack. But obviously, Educator can't know that, and so I would take the attack. You know, chances are that copper, moneylender can trash the copper for you, but you're probably not going to see that copper ever again anyway before this game ends. So any chance of getting a good attack in is going to be worth it. Ugly hand from Educator. It is quite possible that that big lead we saw from the Educator was misleading. It might just be that they greened a little too soon, and so they had a sort of an artificial points lead that wasn't sustainable. Okay. 2 piles are empty, but I don't see a 3rd pile that's going to run out before provinces get bought. This is an awkward split, though. 34-37 means if they split the provinces 1-1, Educator wins. So Educator is still definitely favored to win here, I think. Well, I don't want to say definitely favored. iMonster, I think, does have the better deck with more golds. So they could conceivably hit Province twice here before Educator hits it once. I wouldn't rule that out. Now, what card do you add here? It's probably not too important, right? There's a good chance you never see the card ever again. I think Militia is still really good. Militia attacks are real valuable here in the end game. Harbinger, I think, is actually not a bad choice here. The decks are thick enough that one nice Harbinger top deck of a gold could be the thing that helps you get to 8. I think this is the context where Harbinger actually shines. I was saying earlier Harbinger's real bad, but your deck's real thick. You've got a bunch of junk cards and a few valuable cards like golds and militia that you want to find. Harbinger can shine here. Like Educator is about to have a real nice Harbinger top deck. They get to top deck like a gold or a militia going to the next turn, which will be really good. Awkward $6 hand, not quite enough from iMonster. So if Educator finds a gold, a silver, or any cantrip, they can hit 8 here. Like if they draw a village or a market, they can top deck a gold and then draw that gold again with the cantrip, and then they'll be in a good spot. Oh, well, they just drew gold directly, so yep. That's the game. There are not enough points left in this kingdom for iMonster to win. And the only way they could win is if Educator decided to trash some of their victory points at the chapel. All right, so Educator came back. iMonster does still take this 4-2, but Educator got one more good win in before the match ended. Yeah, iMonster is correct. This is definitely a situation to resign in. There's no way, barring some very weird errors from Educator, that they could possibly win. They're just going to go for the fancy resign by buying the last province. So this is pretty serendipitous. I was actually just about to record a demonstration of one of those kingdoms to show how I ideally wanted to be played, and lo and behold, one of the players actually showed back up and joined the lobby. So let's go ahead and edit the table. So I've loaded one of the games. Yeah, I would bet on myself in this match. Not to be conceited or anything, but I think I've got a pretty good chance here. Let's play it. I want to play from their perspective. So I'll play the position they played last time and see how I can improve. All right. Yeah, so we're going to reload the same game from the same seed, which means the decision should play out in the same way, theoretically speaking. But I'm going to play from their position, and they'll play from the position their opponent had. We'll see how this goes. That's a fair point. You got me there. I don't want to give more specific odds or anything. Kind of hard to estimate that sort of thing. Hmm. 51 is greater than 50. All right, so I believe I said when we were commentating this that Militia Silver seemed like the best opening to me. I think the key card to get here early is Sentry. That's how you get trashed fast. And Sentry is really good if you can get it early. And so I want to orient my opening towards maximizing the chance I hit 5 and, reducing the chance that they do. So I'm going to take Silver Militia because both of those give +2, so they help me hit 5. And the Militia, get in a nice discard attack, maybe prevents them from hitting 5 as well. They're taking a Workshop. I think, so Workshop is, a key card in this kingdom. I mentioned this in the original game. It's the only way to gain more than 1 card per turn. I just don't think you want to open it because it really hurts your chances of hitting 5. They take Moat. Interesting. I don't think Moat's very good here. Moat, perfectly fine draw card eventually. It kind of blocks Militia, but it blocks the Militia attack at the expense of sort of attacking yourself because you're adding a relatively weak card to your deck in order to prevent that. We hit 5, so we'll buy Sentry. Now I'll be pretty surprised, given their opening, if they manage to hit 5 here on turn 3 or turn 4. They're already going for gardens. Oh my, I don't like that one bit. That seems... Turn 4, trying to score points is just way too early. There's a good big deck to be built here, and so we're going to build that, and then we'll focus on scoring once we've got our deck up and running. So I could add Laboratory or Witch here. I'll probably add Laboratory because I'm a little over-terminaled for Witch. I want my next terminal action card, I think, to be Workshop. And I'll probably buy that next turn because I expect there's a good chance I don't hit 5 again. I could get a 3rd Sentry, honestly. Get thin real fast. They're not going for Witch, though, so I think maybe 2 Sentries is fine. Let's just add the Lab. I'll take Workshop here. This is a really unfortunate shuffle, though. So both my Sentries are in the bottom 4 cards, which means both my Sentries have sort of missed this shuffle entirely, because they're getting shuffled into the next shuffle of my deck before I've even seen them. Not much we can do about that, though. You know, given that they're spending all their buys on gardens, I think we're still in a perfectly fine spot. They hit 6. I don't understand why you'd want gold here. Gold seems like a card of 0 value. I think this is one of the situations where they just kind of feel compelled to get gold because they have 6, and gold costs 6. Buy the card that's good for your deck, not the card that's most expensive. We can go ahead and add Cellar. Cellar will help us get those last few Sentry trashes in. That'll be kind of important because, I don't know, this Sentry's bottom decking. This is real painful. Not getting to play Sentry until turn 7, and then it not being in the shuffle is... That's going to slow us down a bit, not going to lie. But I mean, you know, a deck with Sentries relative to a deck with Gardens is, you know, still going to be much faster. We don't need that silver anymore. We can trash that. Trash the estate. I have a Throne Room already. I can't draw it. Let's just discard to the end of this shuffle so I get rid of all that junk on the top. Now, maybe a second Laboratory. I want to add the Witch real soon, but I don't have enough actions yet to support it. I think if I can get like one more Throne Room in my deck, I can start considering buying Witch. Don't buy gold. Ah, you bought a gold. I think that's a mistake. Just discard. Let's just keep the Workshop on top. We want a Throne Room, we said. So seems like a good way to get one. Take the Throne Room, take a moat for draw. All right, now we're in a good spot. All right, so this is definitely slower to get up and running than I would like. I think, you know, with better draws, we'd be doing a lot faster. But, you know, they're filling their deck with victory cards before they've even built anything. I don't know how they expect to finish off the game. All right, so let's discard. Oh, I misclicked. That's not a big deal. What I meant to do is discard these cards down to the discard and trash them with Sentry, but it's all going to end up the same regardless, so it's not a big deal. All right, we've almost finished off the junk in our deck. Now let's add a Witch. I'm also going to want a second Throne Room soon, but I can gain that Throne Room off of my original Throne Room, and that'll be perfectly fine. Throne Room, Sentry. I think I'm fine drawing these. Not bad cards to have on top. All right, I want the next Throne Room to be used in my Workshop, though. I think that's a key card here. So let's, how do I make sure I can get this copper into the discard? My Sentry sees it. I'll discard it now. Then I can draw here, and oh nice, got them both trashed. All right, so now let's Throne Room Workshop to gain Throne Room Workshop. And we won't get to buy anything here, but I think that's totally fine. Let's just gain 2 more Throne Rooms. I want to add one more witch. You know, I can get in 4 curses at a time with 2 witches. That'll empty the curse pile pretty fast. And I want to add some vassals for economy. So I think next step for this turn is going to be to gain like 2 vassals. So I have money. And then I'll buy a witch at the end of the turn. And then probably next turn we'll start buying provinces. Draw all the cards. All right, let's gain Throne Room Vassal. Draw it all. How many vassals do we need? It's probably enough. Curse them 2 times. And we're getting in 2 curses and a militia attack every turn. Seems pretty strong. Their deck's full of gardens. They never bothered trashing. In fact, do they have 1 sentry, right? We only have 2 of them. They have trashed none of their estates and none of their coppers and none of their curses. And we could buy province here. Maybe I start on the province. I mean, in 3 turns I'll empty these curses anyway. That's probably enough. No, let's go for the win next turn, I think. There's a scenario where potentially we could pile out all the throne rooms in the gardens or all the throne rooms and workshops. And so with the witch, I can get those curses depleted quicker. I think next turn is a little optimistic. I think the turn after this, we're threatening a serious win. They're still buying victory cards, so I don't expect their deck to ever do a whole lot of anything. Discard that to find a draw. Oh, this is unfortunate. Okay, I don't have quite enough draw. We're still going to draw, but I didn't get to Throne Room the Witch. My vassal played the Witch. And they've got a moat in hand. So we're not giving out the curses fast enough to pile out. And the key pile out here is going to be Gardens, Throne Room, Curse. But the curses aren't going to run out that fast at this rate. So let's just play Workshop. We'll get another Workshop, gain another Throne Room, draw some more cards. We can gain the last 2 Throne Rooms and the last 2 moats. Not the last 2 moats, but we can get 2 moats. And let's see if we can top deck. I only want 1 moat on top and 1 Throne Room. That's pretty good, I think. And get in a militia attack. And we can buy province now. Yeah, so the next turn that they fail to have moat in hand, which will probably be next turn, I think they're in trouble. So we have 23, 28 cards in deck, so gardens will be worth 3 for us. Could consider piling that out. Put that on top so I can play with Vassal. All right, let's start drawing. Witches, where are you at? There's one of you. Take 4 curses. All right, let's see if we can win this turn. So, can easily gain 4 gardens off of Workshop. Do they have any workshops? They have 1, right? So we have 1 more workshop down here. I think that bottom card is actually Workshop, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So I can give out 2 curses. I can gain 4 gardens. I can gain 2 curses. How many points is that? The gardens will be worth 12 total. That'll bring me up to 18. I take 2 curses, I'll be down to 16. And I buy a province, and that should still be a win, right? Let me make sure I can do all that. Pretty sure I can. Actually, let's not bother making sure. Let's just play onwards. Show. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 throne rooms played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actions played. Yeah, so this should be enough. So let's throne room the militia because we'll need the money. Now we'll gain the gardens. Oh, I didn't even factor in the points that they were going to take from the witch. Yeah, so I thought we were only going to make it with like a 1-point margin. We'll make it with more than that. We can buy province, and that's the game. Yeah, I mean, like, we ended the game turn 14, but like they had no deck control. They had no way to end the game. They can't empty piles by more than like maximum 2 a turn if they find their workshop. Otherwise, 1. We could have drawn the game out longer, bought more provinces. Our deck was going to hit province every turn. And so even if we couldn't have won that turn, we could have just continued playing on, and the game was going to end whenever we wanted it to.